Hey, Flickin' Fanatics, this is Pastor Dad Fox, Scott Fox here for Fox Talks, and we today are going to be breaking down all things Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. And man, is there a lot to break down. But I want to start off everything clean slate real quick and just say there is so much negativity going around about this show. It's almost nauseating. There are people just absolutely trashing Rings of Power. And a lot of that's coming from hardcore Tolkien people. And I'm a hardcore Tolkien person. So we need to clarify a couple things. One, they've changed a lot of stuff in the story. Now, the hardcore Tolkien person in me is kind of upset about that. However, what they've done looks pretty good. So it's this kind of dual thing where, okay, they've changed some stuff. They've made some edits. They've changed some storyline. All right, we're going to have to deal with that. But what they've done looks really good. That second trailer that just dropped yesterday looks fantastic. Makes me want to really dig into the show. I'm looking forward to, 6 p.m. on September 1st when those first episodes drop. I'm going to be digging in, and we're going to be doing probably live reactions and doing reviews and reactions to that show. There's a lot of stuff about the Tolkien lore, everything Tolkien that you could think of that causes a lot of people, especially diehard Tolkien people, to become very passionate about the material and defensive of it. And that's okay. But we can't completely dismiss this show before it's even begun. Also, we know from some of the imagery that they've set out that if they're kind of sticking with Tolkien lore, there's going to be a lot of timeline differentials here. There's going to be flashback sequences where you're going to look at first age type of stuff. You're going to look at Elrond when he's younger, plus also his brother Elros and that relationship, who is also many, many, many generations removed from Queen Muriel, who we see in some of the images and in the trailer. So we're going to have to be okay with that. Okay. So let's just set that aside. There are kind of two things happening here. We have Tolkien, and then we have the Rings of Power. All right. And the Rings of Power has taken some liberties with the Tolkien universe. Does that cause me some apprehension? A little bit. Does it make me angry? Not at all. Why? Because even Peter Jackson made some changes, right? Peter Jackson moved some stuff around in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but Peter Jackson had 3 monumental books to work from, whereas they're working from the same books for Amazon, plus the appendices, which really don't have the material. A lot of people who are upset right now are quoting the Silmarillion and other books. And you know what? Let's just put the hate aside and let's just be grateful that, hey, we're getting some stuff in the Tolkien universe. It might not be exactly to what Tolkien would have written or what he did have written, but they're also trying to make a show, an entire series out of it. So give him a break. Okay. Give him a chance. All right. Couple things to really look at. The whole setting for this show is in the Second Age. All right. The Second Age is post Silmarillion, at least the bulk of the Silmarillion. The First Age ends with the fall of Morgoth. And then the Second Age is this age of Sauron as he comes to power and builds himself up. And then his defeat is what brings in the Third Age. And we also know that when Sauron is defeated again at the end of the Third Age, that brings in the Fourth Age and the Age of Men. So there's all these little tidbits that go with it. So the Second Age, this is a expanse of roughly 2,000-ish years. Okay, it's kind of a broad swath to pull from. So before we get too far into all that, let's start looking at some characters. The biggest thing we got to look at, and this is going to be critical, is going to be the Elven Lords. Okay, so we have 3 key people here that we're going to look at. We got Gil-galad, Galadriel, and Elrond. They're the main Elvish people. At one point in time, Gil-galad, we got to remember that Celebrain is the one who manufactured the Elvish Rings of Power. Under the tutelage and the guidance from Sauron, he creates the Elvish Rings. The reason Sauron has no power over them, I'm sorry, I'm nerding out already, is because Sauron never touches those ones, and he also doesn't know who has them, so he can't actually link them or find them. Unlike the other rings, where he manufactured them himself, he touched them, he handled them, and he knew who they were given to, which gave him dominion over them. So we know Galadriel has one of the rings. Elrond ends up with one of the rings, and Círdan ends up with the third ring. But the third ring is eventually given to Gandalf. But that's way ahead of ourselves. At some point in time, this dude right here, Gil-galad, actually has all of them. Gil-galad is the last High King of the elves. He's the last person to claim lordship over all Middle Earth elves. He is, King Thranduil. There were other kings within the elvish lineage of the Noldor and the Sindar and the Teleri. There's different kings for the different realms. Gil-galad was the last High King, last main man in Middle Earth for the elves. He at one point in time had all three rings. He gave them out to Círdan, Elrond, and Galadriel. This is before the battle of with Sauron at the end of the Second Age. Rings. He's got a lot of them, right? The battle with Sauron, that is the end of the Second Age, where he loses the ring. Gil-galad actually dies there in that battle alongside Círdan and Elrond. Elrond serves as the herald of Gil-galad. So that's before he's the Lord of Imladris. Who has more rings, Sauron or Sonic? I hate to say, but I have to go Sonic. But Sauron certainly wanted more rings. So character-wise, Gil-galad, last High King, is going to be a critical part. He's the man. We also have Galadriel. Galadriel is the daughter of why did I just blank on this? Not Fingon. Feanor's son is Galadriel's father, and Fingon and her brother. So there's also this question, and she in the trailer talks about her brother dying. Now, this is one of those things where she has three brothers, possibly four, depending on which age of Tolkien lore you're looking at, because he adjusted it. One of the brothers, Orodreth, is listed as being her brother, but then in another thing it says that he is actually the son of Finrod Felagund. Finrod being one of the older brothers of Galadriel. Another brother is Aegnor, Aegnor, and then Aegnor, and then Angrod are the other brothers. Well, they showed this image of her brother dying at the beginning of the trailer. Okay, if it's Finrod Felagund, we have an issue because he dies in the cave or in the dungeons of Sauron during the First Age before the fall of Morgoth. He dies, but he dies at the hand of werewolves and Sauron, not in the battle of Wrath, or the War of Wrath, or the War of Sudden Flame, which is where her brothers Angrod and Aegnor both die in that battle. So I'm curious as to see which one of the three brothers they list here. My only concern is if they use Finrod in this position, then we have an issue because his story is intertwined with Beren and Luthien. That essentially cuts them off from ever using the storyline of Beren and Luthien, which, by the way, is one of the greatest stories ever. If they were going to really want to retell a story, the ballad or the Lay of Beren and Luthien is one of the most beautiful stories. And I understand why they didn't go with that. They didn't have the rights to the Silmarillion, but that is talked about in the Lord of the Rings and in the appendices. Aragorn even sings a song about Beren and Luthien and their life. So, but if they go with Finrod Felagund, who is the king of Nargothrond, another realm, it's a cave realm of the elves. If they use him, they're depicting his death in the wrong way. That's kind of frustrating because it ties in with other tales in Middle Earth. And you're also then affecting the timelines really distinctly.
I just want to say some people take 3 years of Spanish in high school. Instead, Scott has taken 30 years of Tolkien.
That's a fact. That is a fact. Okay. So that's enough about about that relationship. But Galadriel, a lot of people are up in arms because also they depicted her as a warrior, and it's never really talked about her being a warrior. Okay, she is one of the bravest sons of Feanor, or the children of Feanor, and she also makes the march through the north in the dire cold, which when you see in the trailer, I believe that's what they're depicting with the wind and the ice, where they're marching through, is that treacherous travel they took, instead of going around, because they couldn't go by sea, because Feanor and his other sons burned all the ships. um, During the kinslaying. She was there as part of the kinslaying, and then her and a faction went around through the north all the way through this bitter cold and fought all the way around in order to be able to come to the aid of the other sons of Feanor. And she was part of that. She was one of the bravest elvish women there was. Does it depict her as a specific soldier and warrior? No, not really, but they don't talk about her a whole lot, other than she is one of the wisest and most powerful elves there is. And she also Sauron multiple times. She's on the White Council. Anyways, I have no issues with them depicting her as a warrior. Does it fit with the character exactly? No, because she's one who uses instead of a sword, she wields power as an elven witch, essentially. But am I upset at it? No. Okay. So they're gonna show her in a slightly different light. Whatever. Perfectly fine with it. Again, there's not a lot of backstory for Galadriel. It's okay if they embellish a little bit and try to build a character around this, because all we have is what's in Lord of the Rings, as she's the Queen of Lothlorien, right? And married to Celeborn. It's okay. It's going to be all right. She's going to kill some. She kills a giant troll, an orc in the trailer. It's okay. She can wield a sword. It's going to be perfectly fine. Them depicting her as more of a soldier leader, that's not really reflected in the source material. But there's also, like I said, not a lot of source material around Galadriel. So take a deep breath.
Question for you, because it feels like Galadriel is who we've gotten the most of in the trailers. How do you feel about the casting so far? Since most of the cast is people that we are not familiar with.
I'm perfectly fine with it. It's hold on, her name, Morfydd Clark, and I'm probably saying that Morfydd Clark. I think it's perfectly fine on the casting. She's got a resemblance to Kate Blanchett. I thought Kate Blanchett was absolutely perfect as Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings, and I think Morfydd Clark is a good selection. And so far, from what I've seen in the trailers, I'm perfectly fine with the casting on it. I think it's going to be solid, and she's a strong actress. So, again, this kind of bitterness that some people have about the way they're depicting her, I haven't heard anybody upset with the casting. It's just the way they are choosing to depict her. But again, not a lot of source material in the background for Galadriel.
Another quick question is one of the only semi-well-known names that was originally cast until they pushed back production was Will Poulter. Out of the list of characters that we've seen, who do you think he was playing?
I believe he was going to be playing one of the Numenorian. Either he was going to be playing the character similar to Halbrand, or he was going to be one of the Numenorians like Isildur, or possibly there's a character called Keeman, who's one of Pharazon's sons. I think he was somewhere in that realm. I can't imagine them using him in a different role. And from the imagery that of course, I don't. Who knows if that image is actually tied to the Rings of Power production, but I could see him playing many different roles. But I think he was probably going to play one of the Numenorian line if I was to have to actually give a selection. Most likely Isildur, just because of the age. So,
thank you. I will.
All right. Lastly, we have. I think I had an image of Elrond, but I can't seem to find where I put it. So that's all right. Oh, here we go. This is awesome. So you're gonna have to look in the background on the side here where Elros is, or Elrond is in the background. You notice these two dudes look a lot alike. This was one of the coolest little nuggets that I saw. Is Elrond being one of the greatest? He's considered the wisest of all the lore masters of Middle Earth, of the Elvish people. Right. Well, pictured with him is his twin brother. The difference being, all right, we're gonna get a little nerdy. His father, Arendelle, is the product of the marriage of Idril, who is the Elvish queen or Elvish princess of Gondolin, and Tuor, who is of the line of Huor, who is considered to be one of the bravest men from the original three houses. So Elrond and Elros are basically half Elven. Arendelle, their father, is he is the product of Tuor and Idril. He represents all of men. He's also married to Elwing. Elwing is also the product of the line of Beren and Luthien. Their son Dior leads down the line to Elwing. Elwing, all right, I'm getting way out. Elwing marries Arendelle, who is half Elven. Elwing has Maiar blood. So these guys are imbued with the blood of Maiar, the elves and men of the highest lines, and they are given the choice of how to live their life as elves, as immortals, or as men, mortal. And so Elros chooses to live a life under the doom of men, which is to die and go on. And elves are given immortality unless they die, then they go to the halls of Mandos. Iluvatar does not tell the Valar what the doom of men is or what happens to them after they die. We don't know. So Elros chooses to be a man. Elrond, his brother, his twin brother, is an elf. And so you can see that Elros is older. He is the first king of the Númenóreans. Okay, he founds the island of Númenor that is given by the Valar to the sons of Arendelle. Is Elros becomes king of that, which is fantastic. And he lives 500 years. He is the longest of the line of the Númenóreans. So that relationship, Elrond and Elros, I'm curious to see how they're going to portray that, because that is a unique dynamic. And if you didn't know this, Aragorn is a descendant of Elros 29 generations later. Okay. The crazy thing is that means that his great 29 times uncle is Elrond, meaning that his great cousin is Arwen, who he marries. I think there's enough generations in there that it's okay. But Elros is the top of the line for the Númenórean people, the kings of Middle Earth, the kings of Gondor. So that bridges the gap. Now we're over into the Númenóreans. Hold on a second. Now this is something I'm curious about. In this picture from the far left, we have Keeman. I believe that to be Pharazôn's son. Second from the left is Queen Muriel. She is listed as the Queen Regent of Númenor. The strange thing is, in the actual story, she never actually becomes queen. Pharazôn, the guy in the middle, usurps the throne from her and steals the scepter and the lordship of Númenor. Dude is bad. If you're wondering who one of the secret bad guys in this entire show is, that guy in the middle with the graying beard is bad news. Absolutely. He also hates the faithful. Who are the faithful? Well, look to the other side of that picture. You have Elendil, who is the in the war against Sauron. Elendil is the king. He's the king of Gondor, and he is the last remnant of the faithful who come back to Middle Earth, and Gil-galad helps him out and helps him establish lordship over Gondor. His son, Isildur, who we know is the guy who cuts the ring from Sauron's hand and then takes it selfishly, and is also the great grandfather of Aragorn, and then a new character that was written specifically, actually Keeman, as well as this young lady, Arian is Emma Hovarth. Her character is Arian. She is Isildur's sister. She was created for this series. So the lady in the orangish red, is a new character for this series. Just to add some family dynamic. But they're Isildur and Elendil fall underneath the faithful. The faithful are those who are still true to the Elvish people, as well as they still worship the Valar, who are the gods of Middle Earth, with the actual god at the very top being Eru Ilúvatar. But Pharazôn, the guy in the middle, hates them, and he also craves immortality. And so I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but these are this is the Númenórean line right here in this picture, and it's going to be kind of your basis for these are the people who share in the elven blood. The elven blood, the line of westernness that they talk about, which gives them farsightedness, it runs deep in these families. But there's also some corruption that falls in with it. And then let's see here. After that, we can jump over. Oh, I did have this picture right here. So this shows, I believe, in the top right is Isildur. Bottom left is Muriel. We just saw them. An orc, obviously, in the bottom right. And then we've got the dwarvish people. Now we're over. That's Durin the Fourth, also seen in this photo. I did not get a picture of Durin the Third, but one of the relationships we'll see here is Durin. The house of, or the line of Durin is they're one of the lines of the dwarvish people. There's a couple different family lines or branches. Durin is the only line that's really well known or remembered. And his grandsons, the name Durin runs deep. Also, elves live several hundred years. The 250 years is easy time for elves. So Durin the Third reigns right now. Durin the Fourth is the prince underneath him, and his wife is Disa. And this is a relationship that we're going to see kind of explored in this series as they kind of figure out how that goes forward. Now, you might be curious of who Disa is, a new character made for the show, no actual history behind her. And there's, I can, if I'm correct, only one female dwarf is listed in the Tolkien lore. They're not mentioned much at all, other than Gimli saying that they like little hairy women, which she does have a lot of hair. So we'll just go with that. And so the dwarves, will be looking at that. The one thing in the trailer that we saw is that Durin the Fourth finds Mithril. Mithril becomes this coveted metal. Matter of fact, it's so coveted. The reason why the mines of Moria get overtaken is because Sauron covets Mithril, and he sends orcs, goblins, everything he can into those mines to overthrow them, so he can claim all the Mithril for himself, because he highly covets silver steel, or true silver, as they will call it in some of the realms. Let's see here, and then elves. We have Arondir. Okay, I have a better picture of him here. Let's see. This is Arondir. Now we're into the lines of men and elves. They're kind of going to explore this. Arondir is a Sylvan elf, which would be a wood elf, following under the kingship of Thranduil. Thranduil is the king of Mirkwood. He overrules the wood elves. Again, that would be underneath the lordship of Gil-galad, because he's king over everything. But he allows Thranduil to rule in his own way. But in this image, we also see Bronwyn. This is to reflect a relationship between a woman and an elf. Relationship reflected. There's been 3 unions listed in Tolkien lore. Beren and Luthien is the first. Tuor and Idril is second. And then we have Aragorn and Arwen is the third time. And the last time we see that is going to be or then they're trying to bring that back with Arondir and Bronwyn. Bronwyn also has a son in this series. Um, uh, she's a healer and a mother. Her son is Theo, and then we're going to look at that relationship. And then there's also a gentleman here. I couldn't remember if I found a photo of him, of Halbrand. Halbrand is this mysterious character who is found on a ship that's broken down at sea, and he's found floating. And he's got a mysterious kind of dark past. There's a lot of people who think that might actually be Sauron sneaking through, because from what we understand, Sauron has not been revealed in any way, shape, or form. And so, or he has, but we don't know that it's actually Sauron. So we'll find out that. I'm curious to see how they're going to portray Sauron and how they're going to work him into the series. And lastly, okay, so we've covered elves. We've covered the Numenorians, which are the half elf, half humans, or half man. We covered the dwarves. We've covered the men. There's not very many men listed so far on the cast specifically. And then we do have a couple of unknowns, including Daniel Wayman, which is the unknown stranger who falls in the meteor. We see in the next trailers that it looks like that might actually be Gandalf or one of the Istari. Again, third age character, not a second age character, but we're going to give some grace. They're doing the best they can. They got to try and they're trying to also bridge the gap between this series and Lord of the Rings. And there's a big gap. And they're trying to find ways to interweave the story. Hobbits are not listed in the second age. They come about in the third age. Yet, we know that we have the predecessors, the Harfoots, right here. Okay, this is the Harfoot family. And in the Hobbit people, we know Sardok Burrows. He is a meteorite person, very Stardust or Diablo the Three. Yes, sir. But we also know that we have Sardok Burrows, who's an elder of the Harfoot people. I believe this is the Brandyfoots or the Proud Fellows. We know we have Lenny Henry as Sadok Burrows, Markela Kavanaugh as Eleanor Brandyfoot. She's the young one who's really seeking out adventure. Megan Richards as Poppy Proudfellow. She's a curious Harfoot. Dylan Smith as Largo Brandyfoot. I believe that's pictured here. That is Nori's father, or Eleanor's father. And then we have Marigold Brandyfoot, which is Nori's mother. So we have the Brandyfoot family, Poppy Proudfellow, and so these are the Harfoots, are the predecessors to the Hobbits. These are the people who, but they showed it to be a little more travelers. Maybe they're going to find a place and they'll settle down in the north where the Shire ends up taking root. But cool that they're going to introduce them. It's a little bit early, being that this is supposed to be second age. But again, timelines are being stretched here, going a little bit wide. That's okay. It's all right to have some differential in the timelines. Yes, Proud Feet, both of them. Godling, or what do we got here? God only knows who the meteor guy is. Yeah, absolutely. Nobody actually knows who it is, but other than the people at Amazon. But I'm curious to see how they're going to portray a lot of these characters. We have to just basically take a step back and say, okay, they've adjusted the timeline. They've adjusted a lot of the stuff. They're trying their best to take a broad look at it. We also, based on some of the characters, we know that this is going to cover a large expanse of time, which is okay for Galadriel, Elrond. They're immortal. They will look young most of their life. Galadriel is actually probably about 2,000 years older than Elrond, if you could really believe that. And matter of fact, I had a picture of Elrond and Galadriel. That's all right. They show them talking, and I've heard some people saying there was never a meeting between Galadriel and Elrond. Never a meeting. That didn't happen. You're right. They didn't write about it. However, we know they're both on the White Council. Pretty hard for them not to meet, yet somehow end up on the same council discussing the same information. Right? Voting on how to overthrow Sauron, working with Sauron and Gandalf, Radagast, the two Blueses. There's several of the Istari. So the question being, are we going to be okay with that?
You
Or are we
brought
just
it
going to
up.
continue to poo-poo everything?
You brought it up, and now I have to ask. You said the two blues. I remember hearing about them in The Hobbit. I don't know what their lifespan or timeline is. Is there any chance of getting any more insight about them? Because I know nothing.
No, not really. They're not really talked about other than in the Tolkien Unfinished Tales of Middle Earth. There is some information about them, but mostly just their name and the fact they are Istari, but they are not really talked about. Radagast is talked about briefly, but Sauron and Gandalf, or Saruman and Gandalf, are talked about more. And the Istari are essentially the same as the Maiar, which is what Sauron is, and they are sent specifically to combat Sauron. They're the support people for Middle Earth, and Gandalf is the only one who stayed true to his mission all the way.
Well, I distinctly remember Merlin in the Sword and the Stone Disney film wearing blue, so he must have been one of them.
He very much could have been also listed as one of the wisest wizards ever in Harry Potter. So, Order of Merlin, first class. They don't have a lot of information about the Blueses. Radagast is barely talked about. But again, we also have to look at the fact that Second Age doesn't have a mountain of information. They have a lot of stuff that happened, but not a lot of detailed story. They have some stories and they do elaborate, but it's not volumes like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has such a breadth of work to be able to pull from, whereas Warner Brothers only owned the rights to Hobbit, Lord of the Rings books, which includes the appendices, which they could work from. And yes, there's a lot of good stuff, but if you're trying to cultivate love stories, romance, a lot of action, build heroes in, you're going to have to do some elaborate work, and that's okay. So let's stop crushing it. Let's stop poo-pooing it before it's even launched. Now, next week, after the first two episodes come out on the first or the second one, whenever you guys want to watch them, we're going to be talking about it. Now, I might be on board with some of those people displeased, but I have this other sinking suspicion that I'm going to be highly satisfied with what they put out. Is it going to be perfect? No. Lord of the Rings, by the way, completely wiped out Tom Bombadil and the Scouring of the Shire, where Merry and Pippin and Sam and Frodo have to come back and reclaim the Shire from Sauron or Saruman. We didn't get that in the movies. There's lots of stuff out of the Lord of the Rings that Peter Jackson cut out. Tom Bombadil, one of the coolest characters there is, puts the ring on. Frodo gives him the ring. He puts the ring on. It does nothing. Doesn't turn him invisible because he's his own master. And he's also the oldest and fatherless. He's the oldest of all the people on Middle Earth. Boom. Tom Bombadil. He's the man. Also saves them from the Barrow Wights, from the Old Man Willow. One version indicated the two blue wizards appeared in Middle Earth in the Second Age. Okay. And that's fine. If they want to bring him in, I'm not upset about that either. Also, let's not, again, we could be splitting hairs here with some of this stuff, and depending on which ones we want to look at. And you're right, there's some differing information on a lot of this stuff, and that's okay. But because Tolkien also was in the process of revising a lot of his works over and over again, he didn't have like the full universe finished. His son Christopher compiled everything and did his best to put it all together. And now some of these people are trying to lord it over everyone, saying, I know more Tolkien lore than you do, and you don't know what you're talking about. And so this show is garbage. Oh, or because they have a female protagonist who's going to be a really strong-willed female, it's not that good. Get over it. You know what? It's okay. It's going to be all right. Also, adding diversity ethnic-wise is perfectly fine. It's going to be okay. Be grateful we're getting some Tolkien. Like, I'm just happy for it. Oh, well. You know what? People are going to be mad what they want to be mad about. I'm excited for the show. There's a lot to digest with this. I am excited to see how J.A. Bayona does as the director of the first one. I think John Payne and Patrick McKay writing the stories. I'm curious to see how they do. And I also think a lot of people might be jumping to conclusions with a lot of stuff looking at a 2.5-minute trailer and saying, "Oh, they've botched the storyline. The timelines don't mess up." You know what? That's okay. Let's wait till we see it. Maybe there's flashback sequences. Maybe there's foreshadowing. Maybe there's glimpses across time. Elves live literally forever unless they are killed in battle. Or they can die of a broken heart. It happens. Yes, there are several writers. But I guess John D. Payne and Patrick McKay are listed as the main writers for the first 2 episodes. But there are multiple writers for the show, and that's good. Pull from more people. Again, they're trying to create a full out story based upon a very small amount of information. And did they take some liberties with that information? Yeah, probably more than I would have liked. But at the same time, if the product turns out pretty well, it'll be okay. That map hinted at access to material outside the specific rights material. That's true. That is true. Also, I love when people talk about how small Middle Earth is. Well, before when the island of Numenor was in place, boy, there was a completely different map. Middle Earth was a completely different shape when Numenor was in place, and then I'll get off onto what'll happen in the show. But our Pharaoh makes some mistakes, and thus that island goes missing, which is awesome. Okay, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, Sopranos, Hannibal. Sweet. That's a good. All those shows have a proven track record. Even more support for why this show will probably be pretty good. So let's just jump off the bandwagon of beating them up before we even see it. We have 1 week. We're 1 week away from the first 2 episodes falling. Will there be dragons? No. Moving on. That would be cool, though. You have Glaurung, you have Ancalagon the Black, you have, Ancalagon the Black. I would love to see that because he fights Arendelle in the sky on his floating ship, Vingalot, who flies through the skies with the Silmaril on his forehead. He comes in the battle of the War of Wrath where they throw down Morgoth, and Arendelle battles Ancalagon the Black in the sky. What an epic fight that would be able to see. I really hope they show that. A floating ship. Yes. Vingalot is his ship, and it's awesome. He sails to the Undying Lands, and then they take his ship and put it into the sky and put the Silmaril on his breast, and he flies the ship through the sky as a light. That's why he is the brightest star in the heavens with the Silmaril on him. Whew. So good. So good. I actually wanted to name my RV Vingalot. Absolutely. Have fun watching. May your eyes not bleed that much. I hope not. It's possible my opinion may change after I've seen the first 2 episodes, but I refuse to be a pessimist going in. Is it going to be perfect? No. If I'm sticking to only what Tolkien wrote, no, there's going to be things. You can see that in the trailer already. It's okay. Well, I think I've pretty much run through all the characters, all the setting stuff that I can think of. I'm excited to see how this all pans out. We've got 1 week until the show drops. Join us here where we'll be doing reviews, reactions, and responding to you guys about the show. Sorry, I just saw that. Been looking forward to this since 2017 with the announcement and the map. John, 100%. When I saw the map, when I saw the images they first came out with when they announced the show, my expectations were through the roof. But I also don't want to allow my expectations to ruin the experience, because sometimes if we have one specific expectation of a show and then we get in to see it, it can ruin everything. So we got to set all that stuff aside, go in fresh eyes, and let it be what it is. Lord of the Rings did the same thing. I had to go into the theater, setting aside the book, and allow it to be what it was. And then they did the extended cuts where they fixed a whole lot of things. Is it still perfect? No, but that's okay. All right. All right. I appreciate you guys' insights, your input, you guys' the comments. Had a great time chatting with us about you. Join us back here next week as we react to the first 2 episodes when they come out. And if you guys got more questions, put them down below. We'll do our best to answer. You guys have a great night.